What job profession you would never date and why? I wake up for work at 3:45 am, so for me, anyone who works nights and weekends. I want to be able to spend time with them, and if they're working, or getting off work when I'm going to bed, then it becomes a weekend romance, which becomes very limiting. Tried it a couple times, and they never last more than a few months at best. I've heard prison guards are a rough bunch. Not sure if anything has changed there. I'm dating a soon-to-be therapist, and though I thought that may be concerning with all of the I keep bottled up, I do see a therapist. She really knows how to turn it off in the relationship but also help when needed. For an actual answer, likely something like a worker or an influencer. In fact, an influencer may be worse for me. I don't want my life on display, and if we had kids, I wouldn't want them on display either. An influencer. I'm quite tired of drug dealers. An electrician. She won't sweep, she won't clean up after herself, and she will expect me to move everything out of her way. Mortician, got my underlying reasons. Whew, glad to see that engineer didn't make the list. Now I know it's my looks and personality, not my profession face with tears of joy. Onlyfans models, they don't want me either. Singer/songwriters, you will be the subject of their music, and it won't be from your perspective. I'm specifically referring to those who sing about nothing but love and heartbreak. These people cannot be happy, heartbreak is literally their currency. Did it once, now there is an entire album about me. Edit, wow, prior to this all my top comments were about dicks. To those who are asking, no, I will not share the title. Is it good? No, total trash, but it did okay on Spotify. Actor. Not my kind of thing. Doctors. I dated a couple of them and they tended to have a major superiority complex. Like there's us doctors, and then there's everyone else. I'm sure they're not all like that, but I encountered it enough times to consider it a red flag. I think it's risky dating cops, pilots, and nurses. Cop, I do too much illegal. Unless she's a crooked cop, that might actually work out pretty great. Someone from compliance. I would always be in too much trouble not being able to follow any rules, pensive face. As a physician, I'd never date another one. Any type of influencer or anything that involves work. Actor. I imagine the job requires them to be rather self-involved and overly emotional. They are often on location for months at a time. The nature of sets means getting close with other actors very fast, so affairs are more likely. There is a lot of fluctuation in pay where they might go months or longer without a paycheck, and I wouldn't be okay with scenes. I don't care if it's just a job and completely unromantic. It's still making out and putting mouths on places. When I was in flight training, my instructor was always hitting on me, but she had a massive diamond ring, so I figured she was taken and just played it as if she was just a flirty person in general. When she confronted me about not responding to her advances, I mentioned how her big engagement ring was telling me that she was taken. Her response was, "Welcome to aviation. What else do you expect?" She was the first encounter of our kind. Moral of the story, pilots are usually promiscuous. If they aren't, it's because they have a normal schedule, which is rare in aviation, or they are new. If they are new, they will change. Fire eater. I'm not cooking 2 separate meals every night. Alternative healer, they seem to far out of touch with reality. A chef, you'll always be second to their kitchen. Worker. I don't like seeing myself being intimate with other men. As a single new grad nurse who will inevitably be working nights, I should start buying myself some cats after reading these responses. Loudly crying face. Teachers, because they tend to be neurotic. I dated a few, all before the pandemic, and they were constantly stressed out and refused to focus on anything else. One ex taught an elective and you would have thought she had the most important class in her school with the stress she carried, and it was all her. Never again. Politician, somebody already posted sex worker. Honesty is important to me. Bakers. They're too needy. If you go by dating apps, women are usually nurses or teachers. These seem to be the major professions that don't land men. Fashion, broke my heart. Never again anything medical field, just time-consuming lawyers. Same here. Anything related or nudity, kinda gross to me. None, because I'd feel in danger of incurring wrath and being struck by lightning. Onlyfans. Writer. One of us has to generate income at least. Onlyfans girl, stripper, bottle girl, porn star. Not that I'm dating anymore, but I could never date a lawyer. Never. I have lawyers in my family and they are some of the most miserable human beings I've ever met. Not saying it's all of them, but there's a pretty fair share of them that are absolutely miserable. I used to be a producer for an early morning news show. You know how you wake up at 4 a.m. there's early news on the TV. Yeah, that's me. I got up at 3 a.m. Made it to work at 3:20. Prepped for 30 minutes, went live at 4 a.m. Man, was that brutal. The benefit was I finished my day at 10 a.m. I was looking to earn extra cash, so I picked up another TV gig, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. After I got home, ate, showered, I hit the sack at 7:30 p.m. and was out like a light. I aged in doggy years working those shifts. You need to date a dairy farm worker. Similar wake-up times. Face with tears of joy. What do you do, if I may ask? I worked with a former prison guard who worked part-time at the warehouse I did for a bit of side cash. He was a nice guy and basically said that the only reason he worked for the prison for however many years is he knew what he wanted out of life, was a bit of land, some greenhouses, and a pension. Well, he figured the state was the best way to get a pension that was secure, and the prison happened to be where he got a job. But he had so many stories about how most guards were. And how 90% of the prisoners were cool with you if you were cool with them. He was the most strict and goal-oriented guy I've worked with, and all his goals revolved around growing flowers in his greenhouses. It was somewhat amazing to me to see someone with that kind of discipline, when chaos is my usual way of living. And it also seemed so boring to me to be so rigid in your daily life. Ex-prison officer here. We're not all rough in the guts, haha. I'm fairly young and only served 5 years in maximum security. Shift work and the constant work politics and you gotta deal with does change you for the better and worse. Not surprised when stats show shift workers, in particular cops, nurses and correctional officers, have the highest divorce rate. It took a toll and ended my 6-year relationship with my partner. I became a part of the statistic, lol. I had colleagues, some working longer than I've been alive, 25, 30 and years, in the system, and unfortunately most of them were quite miserable. Seeing most of them unfulfilled with their lives, some still working well past their retirement and blowing their paychecks on drugs and gambling, gave me the push to get out early. If you're looking to date one, look out for healthy signs of them leaving work at work, and they have a social life/hobbies outside of the prison system. I was a clinical social worker. It's pretty easy to turn off therapy mode. Therapy takes a lot of work. You have to be strategic with asking specific questions and you have to pick up on nonverbal cues. I'm too lazy to do that with everyone I know. It's exhausting. Psychology majors often have the same problem. In the end, they're all just statistic nerds. I went on a couple dates with a chick with about 100,000 followers or something. The next day she made a TikTok or Instagram video about how amazing the date was and how amazing I was. And then after the last date I told her that I didn't think it was going to work. Well, that night she made another video and made up a completely different reason as to why I was no longer interested. Both videos are pretty funny, though. I've shown them to a few people, including my new squeeze, who also shows them to others and thinks it's hilarious, and laugh every time. He asked about professional stuff. Being a social media influencer is like being a soldier on Call of Duty. Sparkies. A traits joke in a random thread? 6 feet under? Pa, everyone knows that engineers are undateable, so no further warning is needed. Date yourself a death metal vocalist instead. Julia Michaels wrote a song called Happy that really hits these points. Sometimes I think relationships for art. I bet you think this song is about you. Is that you, Jake? Big fan of your movies. My dad is a doctor, grandfather was one, sister is in med school and most of my family are in medicine. This is very true. It is either you are like the most laid-back chill person or a giant who thinks they are better than everyone else. I am applying to dental school now, but both my sister and I have noticed that it is really bad, lol. A few friends are doctors and they're amazing, friendly, empathetic, caring people. A father of one of them is a surgeon too, and that dude has a major superiority complex in all aspects of life. Almost like this guy. https://www.youtube.com/watch, v=thnpmhbl8i. I've only interacted with a handful of doctors beyond doctor/patient. I can see this as accurate. I'm an electrical construction superintendent and just recently completed a new surgical facility for a doctor. He actually has a cutout of himself in his office. Started out as a kind of cool guy, then slowly morphed into a giant pain in my bad experience with a pilot who pretended to not be married for 7mo. I feel sorry for the wife who has probably dealt with this numerous times with that whole. I'm a paramedic and my partner is a pilot. I guess we're. Yup. Dated a nurse who was an ex-stripper once. Turns out she was comfortable enough with a married doctor that she worked with. He would come over to her apartment spending quality time in her bedroom doing knows what until late night. Caught him coming out of her apartment the second time and he said he was a family friend and that he knew her mom for years. Pensive face edit, he was twice her age. Pensive face. Hospital nurses, sure. But clinic or specialty center nursing is likely to be an office hour MF schedule. Dating a nurse comes in handy and can save time or trip to doctor. One of my parents is a nurse and I can text or call whenever I have a basic medical question. Married a nurse 17 years ago. Best decision I ever made. Tells you where the speed traps are. I married an auditor. A shoebox full of receipts just does not cut it in my household. I've dated a few doctors and I don't think I'll be doing that again. They all had extremely weird expectations of relationships and some had some really troubling beliefs about women. The expectation was often that they were looking for someone who would essentially be a bangmaid and mother to their children and expect nothing in return. Most were wildly concerned over protecting future income, which is understandable to a certain extent given student loan debt and residency, but completely unwilling to accept that anyone who left a job to care for them and their future children full-time is also making a sacrifice. I was friends with one. She actively encouraged one of her elderly clients to set her up as his legal beneficiary. She very carefully encouraged him when he became suicidal. He offed himself the night after his last appointment with her and left her everything. She called me the next day, so excited about her luck. I refused to speak to her. She goes on and on about how healing is her life's work and then makes big tribute posts in honor of her best friend, the 80-year-old single man she convinced to blow his head off so she could take his house and car. Out of touch with reality? The woman is a Class A scam artist. She's a pit viper with crystals. You don't buy cats, you catch them. Facts. I am a teacher and feel the same. Totally. I'm a teacher and wouldn't date me. I don't know how my husband handles me. Some politicians are kinda like workers in the sense that they everyone. Hey dad. Half the women I talk to on apps are PhD students. I figured that'd change when I hit 30 but I'm 31 now and now I just attract PhD students in their 30s. When do you all graduate? Jesus. Seriously. Why is it that every girl on apps is an elementary school teacher or nurse? I get the weird hours, but it's a curious thing. You shouldn't date kindergartners regardless of their personality. Did you have any social life? I went to university full-time and worked 3 days a week in my early 20s and that was difficult. I could not imagine working 80 hours a week. I work for a local liquor distributor. I wake up in HR before I leave, so I have time to actually wake up. LOL 4-day work week, 10 HR shifts. Did he have anyone in his life or was he mostly alone? They also asked why. It's the formaldehyde. Legit makes almost everyone hungry. Smiling face with open mouth and tightly closed eyes, you missed out on a good woman. It's just a side effect of formaldehyde. It actually used to be used for anorexia. https://www.iflscience.com/factcheck. Do doctors really get formaldehyde hunger during dissection 62308? I watch it fall apart and pay my bills with it. A great songwriter, indeed. Loudly crying face, 2 hearts. Don't you? When a close family member went to med school, it was like one of the mind trips you have when you first see your teacher outside of school as a kid, or realize they don't live in their classroom. She's still incredibly laid back as a partner in her practice, and there are days I'm still like, there's no way you actually saved someone's life today. I used to do tech support for BlackBerry back in the day. Doctors and lawyers always gave the worst "do you know who I am?" vibes. The only other ones that were worse to work with were the servants of Saudi billionaires. It always felt like they were on the brink of getting beaten if we couldn't find out how to pair this BlackBerry Porsche model to their Bugatti's internal calendar in 2009. I've noticed such extremes with them too. There's a very high percentage in that profession, but the good ones are so good, among my very favorite people. When I was young, I worked with a lot of doctors. That was eye-opening. Before that, I'd idealized their intelligence a bit. I was surprised that they were mostly honors kid, hard-working smart, not gifted smart. They're definitely not, on average, among the brightest people I've known. Not that that's a bad, or good, thing in itself. It just surprised me at the time. Part of this is intelligence from one sphere not translating to another, but it's more than just that. I've noticed any job that has people traveling a lot has a whole bunch of cheaters. For the streets. I don't think that has anything to do with being a nurse though, lol. She would probably do the same in any profession with her co-workers.